Welcome back. Let's continue your stories. I love stories.
Yeah. Well, we left off with the thing about that artists don't need to believe they have experience. And some of the things we experience are the divine operating. So I have so many experiences, but let's just randomly see what comes up, okay? So here's a spiritual axiom. Axiom, the word means it's a spiritual tradition. It's something that we know about. And they always talk about twin rays.
What is that?
A twin ray is that there's you and there's another person in the world that you're connected with, but you don't know it. It's called the twin ray. It's a very old spiritual teaching. Now, in my world, how would you ever think I would experience that to be true?
Yeah.
Because if I'm only going to believe, if I'm only going to know what's real and not believe, how do I not believe in a twin ray? How do I experience it? Okay, I have 3 or 4 employees at my studio. We do lots of printing. We've printed all over the world, sold to countries, 60 countries, and then on my website there's 1,000 paintings. And okay, every once in a while somebody will order something that I painted 30, 35 years ago that's very odd. I have to go back in my records and make sure I have the scan, because the scan, when I first started painting, artists did 50 paintings and there was 2 prints. That's how they did it. And the 2 prints, you'd have to get like 50 of each, and you number 1, 2, all that. And when I started, I said, I want everything scanned. And they go, okay, but it's $250 a scan. Oh. And I thought, well, I'm only doing a couple a month, so I can afford that, I guess. So it wasn't long after that Graham Nash from Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young brought over the first giclée printer from Japan, where they were invented, because he wanted to print things that nobody had ever been able to print before. But to do that, you have to have a scan. The difference between a scan and a photograph is a photograph takes a picture of a flat surface. I mean, amazing now, our little phones, everybody has a wonderful camera. But a scan is, you actually take the image. Like if we took this image, the scan would penetrate this image, and there'd be millions, if not billions, of tiny circles of color. That's what a scan is. So when you go by these buildings, you see these giant billboards and stuff, they weren't able to do that before scanning. Scanning allows me to make like if you take this little painting and you scan it and you want to make it giant, it will come out perfectly clear because it's pixelated, it's scanned, yeah. Right? So in the early 90s when I started, I wanted everything scanned so I could sell. And it was very, very expensive at the beginning. And then when Graham Nash brought over the first giclée machine, 3 artists, me and 2 other artists, got together and we bought our own machine. So for the first time in the history of mankind, an artist like me, of course it took 3 of us to afford it, could make our own prints like this. We started to make these, but we didn't know how to do it. Yeah. So we hired the guy that worked at Graham Nash, the manager, and we hired him for half a day for $500. Today it would be half a day would be like, for a really good consultant, probably $3,000 or $4,000 for half a day. But then it was $500, split 3 ways. So the guy comes down, we have a few scans done, and we give them to him, and he works on the computer. This is just normal stuff today. I mean, AI is doing stuff that it took somebody weeks to do. So, and then he printed out. He showed us how to use the machine and print it out. And most of the machines are from Japan. And the 3 of us looked at each other and go, we're going to be rich. We can print money out. It's money. And we're running down going, oh, wow, we're going to make it as artists. Because in the United States, probably similar here, 85% of artists need another job because they can't make enough at their art, right? And if you're a graphic artist, probably that's different.
Yeah.
Because graphic artists that's computer art. It's different. So anyway, we got the machine, we started printing, we just thought, oh my God, this is fantastic. And I've been printing for 35 years. So anyway, back to my story, the twin ray is somebody ordered a painting that I did 35 years ago, way back in the 80s, and I go, who would order this thing? It was very crude, it was one of my first paintings. And it was big. It's like 36 by 36. So we'd print it, box it up, and ship it to somebody. Guess what happened?
What happened?
5 to 10 minutes later, from 3,000 miles in the other direction, somebody ordered the exact same painting, the exact same size, at the exact same 5 minutes, exact same moment. Now that was a twin ray. Things like that just don't happen. You can't make that happen.
You can't.
You can't make it happen. It showed us the experiences that people are connected at very big differences,
wow,
but they don't know. One thing about the soul, the mind is all about distance and measuring. The soul has no distance. When a mother feels that her child is somewhere, either here or across the country, she knows when there's something wrong. That's because she's got her heart open to that child, and the soul can make great distances. I mean, one of the things I learned at Deepak Chopra's was over the years I got to see every good spiritual teacher in our country. I got to see them all. There's another magic thing. I got to see every spiritual teacher, all of them. The best Wayne Dyers, Eckhart Tolle's, you know, Marianne Williamson, Gene Houston. I mean, you could just give me a list of 50 things. Well, a few times he brought in scientists. And one of the scientists worked for the U.S. government when they were trying to do telepathy. Now, telepathy is about seeing something at a distance. So what they would do is, they would say, hey, in Russia, way up on a mountain, there's a satellite research center. Close your eyes, go there, and draw out the research center. And then the guy that came showed us pictures of drawings from halfway around the world that they'd never seen, and they looked like they took the drawing and they put it over and they traced it. It was perfect. So they proved, beyond it, you can't doubt that, they proved that you can see at a distance. We just don't know how to do it. We've forgotten the ability to see at a distance. So here's another thing I learned to be true. You can see it, you can see something at a distance if you have the capacity, if you have your soul's ability to see it. You can also feel things at a great distance too. You've got all that telepathy, telekinesis, distant healing. You can look right inside somebody and see what's wrong with their illnesses, or if they have an illness, you don't even need to look at them, you just know, you can feel it. These are all things you've learned from the mandala work, because once you've gone, and I've done it every day for 40 years, is open and open and open and keeping it open, that you have a capacity. You know, I gave you that quote earlier, has a far greater capacity.
Yeah.
You have a whole world of things that you have access to from here that this mind can't do. It can't. This is where the treasure is for each of us. This is where you have all kinds of ability. I always tell people, if you stay with me 2 or 3 days and you get your heart open, then creativity naturally comes out. It's easy. We all have it. But you have to keep the heart open or it'll stop. If you can learn, now those 6 students that we looked at last night that worked with me, they've kept their heart open by a practice. All spiritual disciplines require a practice. Mandala painting is a practice. I've called my workshops Art as a Spiritual Path. And I did that because I got to be good friends with, one of the most famous actresses of all times. She was in Rotten Green Tomatoes, Ellen Burstyn. Ellen Burstyn was very good friends with Deepak. And I mean, not with Deepak, with Brewjoy. And Brewjoy would have these annual conferences where all kinds of famous people would come there. And so Ellen Burstyn came up to my group. I got to know her a little bit. She bought a bunch of my stuff. She'd always buy stuff for me for Christmas presents and stuff. I had some shirts with beautiful embroidered mandalas on it I got in Nepal. So anyway, she gave a talk one night, and this is way back early 90s, late 80s. And she talked about, for her, artistic, being an artist, an actress. They call them actors now, actor.
Oh, actors.
They don't call them actresses, they call them actors. And she said, for me, it was a spiritual path. And she told this story about, I'm this famous person, I go to a Sufi. She followed the Sufis, which is a very spiritual form of Islam. It's a heart-centered Islamic religion. So here's this famous person. She goes to the spiritual practice. What do they do for their first week she's there? You're up at 3 in the morning. You're in the kitchen. You're peeling potatoes. You're cutting up carrots. So that's it. So she realized that her spiritual practice was getting up at the morning and taking care of people, that was her spiritual path. That led her. And the moment I heard that, I go, well, that's the same with me.
Yeah.
For art. Art is my spiritual path. So I've taught that. I used to have the website, Art is a Spiritual Path, to put all my students' works on it. But over the time I got too busy. I had to give it up. But we could do that again. Put all the works from all over the world, so many people. You could have a website with thousands of pieces of art, spiritual art. And let's define that. All art is spiritual. But there's certain art, like a Buddhist Thangka painting of a deity or a mandala, that they're just a different kind of spiritual. They're for inner development. Now you can throw a bunch of paint on the wall, it can drip down. That's beautiful. It has a spiritual thing. Even the famous Jackson Pollock said that every drip was placed there by God.
Oh, wow.
He had that spiritual inkling. But looking at that, and I've studied with Osho a lot, and he says if you have a Picasso in your house, it won't take you long until you'll start having mental delusions, because the paintings were all about delusion.
Yes.
So let's categorize art a little bit, that like a mandala is a spiritual art. When you're looking at a mandala, what's happening, whether you know it or not, is your eyes are slowly turning around and you're starting to look inside.
Wow.
In Buddhism, they say we have 5 sets of eyes. In our Western culture, we have 1. And then some people know in the spiritual zones, they say the spiritual third eye, right? But they don't say anything beyond that.
Yeah.
So there's a great artist named Goya, Goya, and there's a great movie called Goya's Ghost about what he had to live through, which was the Spanish Inquisition, which was a hard thing for an artist to live through because it was so damning to people. But he said, here's his quote, I learned to turn my eyes inward, and what I've painted is what I saw.
Wow.
I learned to turn my eyes inward, and what I painted is what I saw.
Wow.
The great artist Gauguin, Paul Gauguin, is famous for doing the Tahitian and the women down there. And he said, I paint and I dream at the same time, and then I awaken when the work is finished. Now that's the experience of it. I've done paintings where I had no idea what I was painting till I was done, And I looked at it and go, wow, that's what that is. And back when I first started to go, first of all, after I did my first mandala, and I had a lot of spiritual friends through Brewjoy, that I called up a whole bunch of people and I said, hey, I want to come and give a talk. We did a free potluck Friday night. Saturday, this was all drawing with colored pencils. We did Entering Your Creative Universe. And then on Sunday, we did Discovering Your Soul Mandala. So I went around the country to like maybe 8 or 10 cities, because with spiritual friends, they go, invite everybody together, I'll come and talk. And then people would sign up for the workshop. And then on Monday, if they wanted their own painting, I would have a soul reading with them. Part of the way having your soul open is you begin to read somebody else's soul. And I'm getting my train of thought. And this was good. After I did this trip for like 6 months, this is how I started. I had like a year of commissions. I could do 2 a month. And I came back from this trip and I had 20, 25 commissions. And I tell everybody, hey, you're going to go into the magic world. I'm here with you right now, but you're not going to see your painting for 1 year, and you're not going to know what it looks like until you open it up.
Whoa.
I had to be very trusting of consciousness, because in those days, once they got the painting, they paid me. In modern times, you get paid, then you send the painting.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way. I did a painting for a woman one time, and then she just disappeared. Never heard from her again. And I thought, well, this isn't right. She kept the painting. It was a painting of her as a goddess. I can understand why she wanted the painting, but from now on, you pay, then you get the painting. No pay, no painting. That's just all business nowadays, There's no checks because they might not be good, right? The credit cards are always good. So,
when you said
Yeah.
you're teaching the mandala,
yeah.
and then you feel God's presence, I mean, this is not your words, it's just my understanding. How do you experience God when you're teaching or painting?
Okay, so the first thing is the mind is all about time. It's about the past and the future.
Yeah.
And that's just all it's about, the past and the future. When people tell me stories, they're talking from the past usually.
Yeah.
But when you go down to your heart, it doesn't know past.
So there's timeless.
It's called, Brujo used to call it the eternal now. It's always the now. The heart is always in the now. In my work and my 40 years of experience, you can only experience God. In my work, there's other ways. I saw a great saint one time, Krishnamurti, and he said there's as many people out there as there is many paths to God. You know?
Yep.
In other words, it's not one way. You can't go Catholicism and get there only that way. There's other ways, right? So once the heart's open, you have all these different capacities to begin to see and feel things, and amazing things happen in rooms. Like we had a few last night, like somebody was sitting in the middle of the room, and then when they put everything up on the board, she was exactly in the middle of the room on the board where she was sitting there.
Oh.
And people on the far right of the room were on the far right of the board, and people that were on the far left of the room were on the left of the board. So what I was saying to them, and 2.5 hours, you can't really get into it, I go, there's a living force here. There's a living, alive force. God is a hard word to use. If a bunch of men got together and say, hey, calling all gods, it would look weird. But goddesses can get together. We're fine with that. So in that room, and when you're together, like when I'm in Hawaii with somebody for a week painting or 2 weeks, you see all kinds of spiritual presence. God is a presence. So when you're in that state, you get to see things and you get to feel things. And just last night, when we put the board up, it was like somebody that was aware of everything in the room that none of us were aware of, put everything exactly where it needed to be. And through the art, we realized that, hey, you're sitting in the middle, you're on the board, you're on the right. How could that happen by itself? So the presence of God, if you can be in that moment, God is functioning, it's all around us, it's in this room right now. I mean, in the ancient days, Lao Tzu called it the Tao. The Tao is here, it's here. But and one of my great quotes from Jesus was, there's a couple of them. This is one of the great quotes from Jesus. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is here on earth, but man doesn't have the eyes to see it. Well, when your heart opens, you have new eyes. You get to see what Jesus was talking about. You get to see the presence of God. It's here on earth, but we don't have eyes to see it. We don't develop. We develop the mind in our cultures. We don't develop the soul. So as an artist, I get to see these things happening. There's another great quote I use. Oh, Henry David Thoreau. He was a guy who was arrested for a year in jail. He was a poet in the late 1800s. He was a poet. He didn't want to pay taxes. He said, I'll go to jail instead of paying taxes. And he goes, I'm sick of society. I went and lived. He wrote a book called Walden's Pond, where he just sat 2 years and looked at the animals and the birds and everything. And then he wrote some amazing things about it.
Wow.
So his quote was, come in, brain, mind, soul. His quote was, stop. This is what you do in nature. And I was doing this with Anna last week when we were in some incredible things in nature. He said, stop, look, listen. Perhaps we're standing in paradise, but if you don't have the eyes to see it, you won't see it. So stop, look, listen. Perhaps we're in paradise, but if you don't have the eyes to see it, you'll miss it. So the difference between not seeing God, and God's just a word for a presence, right? There's not, Osho, my teacher Osho used to say, when a horse dies, he thinks he's going to go up to heaven and there's a big white horse with a long white beard. That's what the horse would see, right? And if a big tree got up there, the tree would go to heaven, there'd be a giant tree with white flowers all over it. So what we do is project that there's a man up there, which is so silly and just childlike, that there's actually a person sitting on a throne waiting for all the good people to get up there. That's just a projection of what we would like to have heaven. And the great artist, come in, brain. He was one of the most famous sculptors. What Michelangelo started, he finished. It was Auguste Rodin. And if you're ever in Paris, you have to go to his mansion there and see his art. It's amazing. When he was getting old, and France and many countries are very Catholic, it's all about heaven, right? They came up to him when he was about 80, a few years before he died, and said, they go, Master, what do you think? You're just about to go to heaven. And he goes, you're insulting me. Heaven is unthinkable. This is heaven. No place could be better than this heaven right here, right now. That's God, right? It's not about up there in the sky in the future. Heaven is here now. Remember, there's no future here. So there can't be a heaven up there. And there's nowhere else. There can't be over there, here. The heart doesn't know that. There's no boundary here. You know, there's not borders and credit cards and all the stuff we use in modern times. Is the heart is in the presence. So it's a long answer to your question, but how do you experience God? You experience God when your heart is open, your soul is active, and you're aware of forces in the room. Like last night I was telling you about when we put up the board, those are forces in the room. And in the workshop, I've seen thousands and thousands of a sense of presence of the divine, and people that have painted with me in the room, we all look around and we stop and we go, there it is. She's here with us. The divine's here. She's in the painting. She's in the room. She's in the food we eat. She's here. But if you don't have art, you have to find another way to get there. There's other ways. I'm not saying art's the only way, but the spiritual practice, art is a spiritual path, leads you to the presence of God as absolutely as real as this glass. I experience it all the time.
Lucky you. I think the only time I experience God is to look at the sky. One time in Sichuan, there is no electricity. So the sky is so clear. And then I found God. Not in church. Sorry.
That's right.
It was so amazing.
Yeah. Okay, you ready to go down the rabbit hole with me?
Of course.
You have no idea what you just said. You were just a little bobblehead bobbling along about past experiences. Now, when the soul's open, the soul's listening. What you described is, I just saw God one time. On the inside, when the sky was completely clear, and it was in the presence, I saw God. Not outside in the past, but right here, right now, in what you said, from listening from the heart. So when you listen from the heart, you hear a whole different language than other people. I can sit in a room with people talking, and they're sleeping. They don't know what they're saying. They're living a very small percentage of what their capacity is to explore life, you know? So when you share that experience with you, that God is always available. Or God, let's use goddess from now on. Goddess is always available when you have access to the door that opens you to her experiences. But you're not going to find her on the outside. The clear sky just gave you a moment that was simultaneously inside yourself. But once you experienced it, then you always have access to it. God's always in there every day, every moment to your last breath. And it might even be there when Brujoy went to Egypt and he put his hands over the chakras, over the mummies. They were still living.
What? Really?
They were still had the chakras.
Oh.
So why do you think many religions have, like myself, scatter my ashes in the ocean? I don't want some box under the ground somewhere. You're stuck there forever. So that's kind of a radical point, but I remember that Brujoy talked about that, and I've never ever forgot that. You know how he said that the mummies are still carrying the heart center, heart chakra.
Yeah.
So in a little way, in the last, say, 5 minutes, what an artist did is describe how his experience, and many people in my workshops that experienced it have experienced God. But you experience it in my practice, in my work, in my knowing, you experience it in here. You don't experience it out there. Remember? Heaven is unthinkable. I don't want to go there. I'm right here in paradise right now, is what, you know, the great artist said. This is paradise. You know, you don't see it. You know, you don't see it. And when young people jump off a building here in Hong Kong, or in the United States, that's something we don't talk about. Japan, they don't talk about either. Suicide rates in Japan and the United States are very high. It's because they don't have that component, that connection to the divine. If they had that, they would never throw away their life, because life is, you can think of your life as valuable, and you only know a fraction of how valuable it is. Your life. You're living in a fraction. All of us are. And the great thinkers know they know a little bit more than the other person. Like the great Socrates, they said, there's a famous story about the oracle said, Socrates is the most knowledgeable man ever. And so all these students went to Socrates and said, hey, the oracle says you're the most amazing person that's ever lived. And he says, I don't know anything. The older I get, the less I know. And then they run back to the oracle, and Socrates said the older he gets, the less he knows. And the oracle goes, see, I told you he was the wisest man that ever lived. Right? Because the wise person only knows a little bit. Matter of fact, there was a guy at Deepak's one time that said, you're 1 or 2 breaths away from Buddha. You're 2 breaths away from Buddha.
What does it mean?
That means you're that close to being Buddha.
Yeah, but
you have a body, you have a life.
Like so.
I know it doesn't feel like that, but you're that close to being enlightened. Most people that become enlightened, I can't say most, but a lot of people that have been enlightened, when they become enlightened, they just laugh for days, laugh and laugh and laugh, because it's always been there. But they didn't know what it was until they finally got there. And once they got there, it was hysterical.
Is that an easy way or easier way to get there? Even have a taste of it? Being enlightened?
You can't put the word easy on it. There's a way to get there. Yeah. And there may be many, 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 many ways. But there's no easy way. For some, it just happens, and others spend their whole life in caves meditating, and it never happens. But art as a spiritual path is a practice that not only can change your life, but can change your relationship with the universe. So you see in a spiritual workshop, you see connections with the divine. It's a much better word than God, is the divine.
Yeah.
You see connections, how the divine, it's almost like there was an invisible force in the room guiding. And the great artist Marc Chagall said, Lord, take my hand and let my brush lead me to a new world, a new life. So once that begins to happen, and he also said that when I paint, it's like my heart opens and the colors run out my arms and rush onto the canvas. See, those are spiritual teachings by great artists. And I look at when I was looking at Botticelli 3 months ago or so, standing in front of Botticelli's, and you go through the great thing Uffizi, and it's just dark and Christ and black and dark, and people are, and then you walk into that room after 2 or 3 hours of suffering through all the Christian paintings, and you walk in there, and then there's the rites of spring and the Venus, the birth of Venus, and there's just these 2 giant paintings in the whole room, and they're just beautiful, and you walk in that room and you just feel there's an enlightenment without all the Christ and the dark and the cross, Brujoy once told me, Paul, he goes, it's time for you to get off the cross. Don't you see there's a whole line waiting to get on there? The Christians...
What do you mean?
The Christians have never let go of the cross.
Yeah.
They've never got off the cross.
Yeah.
So when I went through my dark night, I had dreamed that I was going to go through it when I was much younger, but I never knew what the dream meant. And what the 2 dreams that come back to me is there was a big long river, big strong river, and there was very strong rowers, and there was one person there with white hair, and I got in there with my wife. I was very young then. We were married kids, little kids, and as we were going down the river, I got dropped off with the wise men. And the rowers turned left and went right into a black cave and disappeared. So what that dream was going to tell, first of all, it was going to tell me that I was going to go through a divorce.
Oh. I
wasn't going to go because she died. Going into the black is a symbol of death. And I went with the wise person. So back to our discussion earlier, that dream came from another source than you and I are talking to. My life is about trying to get that source and me lined up the best I can. You know, you call it the soul is the best way to call it. Trying to get it lined up. I went with the wise person, and my ex-wife became my ex. But this was years before I dreamed that I knew that was going to happen. And another dream I had is right before I went into my dark side. I had a dream that it was a big swimming pool. I was in a big swimming pool. Water is amazing in dreams. And that whirl was swirling around and around. It was black in the middle. And I was on the side trying to grip. And I couldn't. I let go and I went, down the black hole, and I woke up. And I went, oh man, I wrote it down in my dream journal. 2-3 months later than that, I went into the black hole. And it took me a whole year, even a year and a half, to come through it with the right kind of people, the helpers. Had to go in therapy, had to learn, had to take drugs for a little bit. At the beginning to sleep, I couldn't sleep. I'd lay down at night and the energy, it was like a Kundalini awakening for me. The energy just came up. It's never left. All of this comes from the Kundalini, which is just that energy flow. That's just what it is. It's that energy flow. And so the dream I had was the teaching that was going to happen to me. Now, where did that dream? Where would you think that dream came from?
God?
Yep. However you call it. It's really hard to put a name on it. Lao Tzu said it the best. If you say what it is, that ain't it.
Yeah.
If you don't say, then you know what it is. The moment you put a name on it,
it's
that
not
ain't it. That's
it's
right.
Not it.
Right. And he was great. There's a thing on YouTube. It's several people. Wayne Dyer's one of them. I met Wayne Dyer, a lovely man, And it's called the Rivendell Lao Tzu, and it's some young Asian, and he spent like 19 years studying Buddhism, or one of those. Anyway, there's this beautiful music in the background. It's an hour and 40 minutes where he says the whole Tao Te Ching, and I listen to it a lot of times right before I go to bed. There's nothing that makes me more comfortable and allows me to sleep better than intelligence, wisdom. When I hear wisdom, I can just be calm and I can be relaxed, And a lot of times I'll be watching a movie and I go, God, it's not violence and killing. You're wasting my time. Go to my bedroom, put on Lao Tzu. I can lay there. Usually read books. I like spiritual books. I read a lot of books. And it just sends me off into the, because there's something about what he's saying that's so true. And in our world, it's very hard to find truth.
Yeah.
People pay to have truth.
Yeah.
And to be around somebody. I mean, you go to some of Deepak's things was $3,000 for 7 days. It's a lot of money to pay for your own truth. And he was so let me tell you a little about Deepak Chopra. Is when I started to paint, I did paintings for one of my early spiritual teachers, and a guy came in and gave a talk and saw it, called me up and said, hey, I want one of those paintings. I'm Brent Beckvar. I've just come out west with Deepak. He's the first guy that came out, right? This is way back, right? And I said, okay, I'll paint you one. And so I painted him one, and he goes, this is so beautiful. The Chopra is just opening up a center. Will you paint one for the center? We'll put it up in there. So I said, okay. So I painted him one, and then he drove down to the center, and then he opened up his trunk of his car, and somebody bought it for $750, which is what I was selling paintings for in those days, and it never even got to the center. He goes, you got to come down and meet Deepak, right? So a few weeks later, there was an Alex Gray, who's another guy that I was with a lot when I was younger. He was having a show near La Jolla. So I thought, I'll put a couple paintings in it. For me to go, come on, go meet Deepak. I'm not that kind of a person, you know what I mean? Hey, hi, I'm
you
here.
met Barbara Streisand.
I know,
Why not?
but I've probably met 50 famous people. Yeah. So anyway, I'm driving down there. I go to the Alex Gray show, who's a very spiritual artist, and I just drive by the Chopra Center that just opened in La Jolla. And I go, hey, Brent Beckvar told me to come in, and there was a little store there about this size. Deepak at first, he had like 1 or 2 books then. And it was a little health bar, a little smoothie place, a place to meditate. Upstairs, Dr. Simon, his partner, was still seeing patients, spiritually seeing patients every hour, And I brought the paintings in there, and they said, well, lucky day, Deepak's here. We'll go get him. So anyway, he comes down, he looks at my art, and he goes, yeah, this is beautiful art, you'd be part of the Deepak, should be part of the center. And I said, I know you better than you think I know. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, in those days we had cassette tapes, right?
Yeah.
I said, I have your tape.
Yeah.
And I just told you what I do. I said, Deepak, I've been sleeping with you for the last couple of years. And he started laughing. He goes, oh, that's so funny. And he goes, yeah, be part of the Chopra Center. So I was there for 27 years. I probably sold, I'm guessing, $1 million worth of art in those 27 years, Yeah, a lot. Huge.
In this sense, I slept with Tony Robbins and John Gray for a long time.
That's right. I only used that line one other time in my life. And that was, I went to a Brewjoy thing in LA. Every once in a while I used to do things. And it was a big thing. It was the seat 600. There was about 300 people in there, a little scattered. But there was this cute blonde lady next to me. And we were kitchen or rubbing, and again, I kept saying, God, I know you. I feel like I know you. And she was very attractive and, probably 20 years older than me, maybe more than that. But
20 years older.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had a very good time. And near the end of the day, we'd go up for breaks. Then we'd always come back, and she'd sit right next to me. And she said, I'm Louise Hay. And I go, well, Louise Hay, I love your book.
Did you know her? Did you
know? I knew of her. And I said the same thing. I go, of course, that's why I knew you. I've been sleeping with you for years. And she started laughing, and she had like 3 or 4 friends, and they were all laughing. I said, I go to bed at night. I can't sleep without you. I have to listen to Louise Hay as I go to bed. And we just, had one of those moments in life.
Oh.
You
I totally think you know it, but I still have to say it. You are so lucky.
That's a funny
so
word.
Lucky.
Kind of earned it. Luck comes with...
I don't know what you've done in your previous lifetimes, but...
Well, I know I was a Tibetan. I know I've had lots of dreams about being a Chinese. The other day I was filming something, and the very end, I don't know where it came from, but a little boy, we were climbing the wall, and it was steep, you fall, you die. And I'm filming this thing, I'm going up, I'm walking up, and I'm telling everybody, hey, I'm going up the wall, and it's dangerous, it's straight up. And the last second of the film, a little Chinese boy just walked in. And then the light was up there, so he had a little glow around him. And when I looked at it at the end of the day, I went, where did that guy come from? I never saw him. And I thought at that time, I go, maybe I'm going to be reborn as a Chinese boy. And there it is. See, I don't take stuff like that lightly. To this, it has meaning. He wasn't there just, it's an accident, and he walked in front of the film. That's how people think. I don't think like that. I go, what is this? He had sun behind him. He had a little bit of glow. And he was a cute little short hair, dressed up really nice. Little boy dressed in blue, the color of the artist. Blue is the color of the artist. And so, that's how I live in the world. I have experiences like that when I have my soul operating, I see that there's more meaning. And remember, I said, here's something that came up last night. Here's another story, right? So, we all know the basic Bible stuff. I've tried to read the Bible. I can't read it, but
Oh, really?
I can't read it. I mean, it's the language and
you
stuff. But I know the story so well. I'm watching right now.
Were you involved in any
7-year
religions
story
before? Were you?
No, when my parents brought me up, they were spiritual, right?
Yeah.
We are part of the Unitarian Universalist Church. My dad was very spiritual, and he was okay with that.
Yeah, okay.
And my mom threw out Jewish. She just wanted nothing to do with it. She abandoned it. And so at the Unitarian Church, we used to have field trips to go to other churches. then come back and share. And how nice was the Presbyterian Church? And
it never happened in Hong Kong. It won't happen in Hong Kong.
What, going around to other churches?
No way.
With kids. But think, here it is. It's 60 years, 65 years later. I can still tell you stories.
They were so open. So good.
And the other thing I remember, there was a black man, African-American man, named Herb Troop. I mean, I can tell you 50 movies, and I can't remember. I know the face, but I can't tell you the name of the person in the movie. Who is it? Who is it? Oh, yeah, it's Clint Eastwood. But
you remember all the other names.
Herb Troop. In Whittier, where I grew up, they wouldn't sell a home to a black man.
Yeah.
They wouldn't show him a home.
Oh, yeah.
So the church got together, pooled a bunch of money, and somebody in the church sold them their house. And for 2 years, I had Herb Troop as my Sunday school teacher, and he was a lovely man. And I remember this to this day. You remember we talked earlier about, maybe it was before when we were talking, about that urge that men, what men do, you know, and it's such a strong urge, and it gets a lot of men in a lot of trouble, gets a lot of women in a lot of trouble. But my parents introduced me to healthy food, into meditation, and the importance about other religions, and the importance about how nice it is that we have a black person as my Sunday school teacher. I've cherished that memory for 65 years. So when you get up later in life and people do bad things, I say, well, what did the mothers say? What was the mother's teaching? What was the father's teaching? Because it has to be something that went wrong.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, people don't just kill or do terrible things randomly, just out of the sky blue. I mean, I'm sure it could happen. I'm not saying this is exactly the way it is. It's never one way. But I always look back and say, okay, where was the parents? So when I look back at my parents, I go, they gave me they were opposites for sure. Jewish and German, they were so different. That they gave me and my brothers spiritual truisms that later in life, I mean, my brothers have been married for 40 years, kids, grandkids, they're each with different gurus, and they've been with that same guru and that same family for 45 years, and they're very, very strong in their practice. You know, like I try to get my brother to go to other places, and they go, no, this is our religion. We don't go around to other religions. I do, because I'm spiritually promiscuous. Right? I like to look at other, I love Taoism, I love Buddhism, God, some of Hinduism, and I've painted all these things. I've done 100 Buddhist paintings, 100 Hindu paintings. I've probably done 30 or 40 Jesus and Christian paintings, and it's the only paintings where I've put up a show, and 2 or 3 times in my life people said, hey, we don't want that in our church. You're going to take that out of here.
Okay.
Never to a Buddha.
Yeah.
Never do but to Jesus or Mary, no, we don't want them in here because there's too much stuff around them. There's too much, we can't take it. Because that's the funny thing about Christianity. It's got its very positive and it's very negative, Yeah.
I was in church for 12 years, deeply involved.
Which one?
Several.
No, but what was the religion?
Christianity.
Oh, Christianity. You?
Yeah.
And
one day I just left because of something bad, okay. Then I tried to go back. And then for a long time, now I left church for 13 years. I miss the circles. I missed my days in the, my Christianity, but I just can't go back.
I can tell you why.
I can. And I still have the guilt in me from time to time.
Right.
Like, if I do that,
well,
what are they going to say?
I'm watching the... No, it'll come to me in a second. It's a 7-year thing about Jesus. It's on Netflix, and but in the movie, in this series, I'm on season 5 done. I'm waiting for season 6 later in the year. They make Jesus out as a real person. He gets angry. He gets mad. He gets pissed off. The disciples are 12 unemployed men. They're not very intelligent.
No.
Jesus gets mad at them.
Oh, yeah,
he calls them dumb and stupid.
Yeah,
and he goes, look at the things I'm showing you. You don't get this? What do I have to do? And somebody goes in the back, one of the disciples, well, raise the dead. Well, he did that, you know. He brought somebody back that was in that. The person obviously wasn't dead. It was just in a sleeping, is what he said. But I like the fact that Jesus is real in this film.
What's the name?
He's a person. I'll tell you in a second. It starts with the word C. The it's one of those, when you're over 70, you have these moments you can't recall. The Chosen. It's the chosen.
Oh my God.
Jesus is real, and the disciples are dumb.
Oh,
They're just common men. They don't know anything. Are you following it? Have you been all the way up through season 5?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I don't think it.
Well, if you're like a binge watcher, it's great because you have 5 years to look through. It's on Netflix. So it's a different kind of Christianity they're showing. And then I've seen the director and some of the things that's what they've tried to make Christianity understandable by people. Not so it's like, oh, he's a god, and no, none of that, you know. And so the next season is the Last Supper, and then the final season is the Resurrection. And Mel Gibson right now, who did The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
Did you see that movie?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but it was one of the most brutal movies ever.
Yeah.
All that flesh flying through the air.
Yeah.
Well, he's making a new one. He's making The Resurrection. So that'll be good.
Is it going to be lighter this time?
I
Passion
doubt
is
it.
so heavy.
It's the heaviest I've ever seen.
Oh,
Most
you've never
women.
seen it?
No, of course I saw it, but most women can't see that film. Most women can't. I've talked to.
Why?
They can't handle it.
Yeah, it was.
It's
harsh.
not the religion they can't handle.
It was harsh. It was so heavy.
How painful his death
It is.
and resurrection was.
I was so shocked.
Okay, so let's get back. What else have I seen with Deepak Chopra? Okay, so here's something. Here's another story. I set up my work, you know, I had these beautiful booths, beautiful Deepaks, and in the beginning for maybe 10 years I was all around the room with lights on, and people come up to me, I want that painting, you know, I want that painting. Or Deepak would say, hey, these paintings are manifestations of higher consciousness. That's the quote he gave me. Paul's paintings are manifestations of higher consciousness. And people would come up and just say, I want that one. And those people that went there had money. They didn't, let's negotiate. You don't want 1,000, can I offer you 800? Not at Chopra Center. You know, the price is the price, right?
Yeah.
You know, I would say
That's
if they
good.
bought 2 or 3, I'd say, okay, I'll give you a discount if you buy 2, right? Business.
You do.
I do. So it's just my second wife, who I love her. I've been through 2 marriages and 2 divorces, and since we're talking this, both of them were raised Catholic. Both of them married to me. They wanted to do the spiritual path, and both of them in the end couldn't do it. They couldn't come over to the spiritual
Why?
path. They weren't capable of it.
Too religious?
No, they didn't like Catholicism at all, but that's the way they're raised. They both couldn't live. I live who I am. It doesn't change. When I leave this room, when I go home, you come to my house, it's an absolute temple. I have 6-foot-high Shivas, and I'm a collector of Kuan Yin. I have at least 50 Kuan Yins.
I want to ask you.
One-of-a-kind Kuan Yins.
I want to ask you something, but even the question is not right, which is, how do you balance your spirituality and your religious belief? But I think the word balance is not the right word.
It's the wrong word.
Yes, it's not the right word.
But
I don't know how to
The answer to your truth is your outer life, your inner life, your religion, and your thing, and your balancing is all one and the same. You put them all together as one. There's not one here and one here. A lot of people go to the religious thing, then they go back to their practice or their work, right? There was a girl in the workshop last night who said, oh, I want to be this and this and this. And I said, the only way you can get there is you have to learn how to open your heart. That's the only way I know. I can only give you what I've experienced to be real. So you have to line up my spiritual practice, my teaching, my printing business, everything is the same thing. Nothing changes. And they couldn't, you know, they couldn't. I mean, Inga, my second wife, who comes from a very high class, very beautiful woman from a high class Austrian family, and talking to her father, he lived through the Nazis. He experienced bombs going off, you know. I mean, it was interesting to talk to him because he was a 10-year-old boy walking around Austria, you know, looking at things that you and I will never see, you know. And she got to go to any one of the Deepak Chopra conferences with me for free. She went to a lot of them, so she probably got $12,000 to $15,000 worth of free meditations. Couldn't meditate.
Oh.
Couldn't meditate. Couldn't sit still to meditate. Same with my first wife, Deborah, they're both very good people. I love them unconditionally, both, but they can't be with somebody like me because I was raised spiritually. I live spiritually. They weren't, and they haven't been able to transform into that realm. So if you came to my house, you'd go, well, this is just a Buddhist temple. I go, yeah, I live in a temple because that's where I live inside. What I see is sacred. What I feel is sacred. So I have big Shivas over there. I got a wonderful Kuan Yin canal. I have two unbelievable, I have a big thing with Chinese art. I have several antiques around my house. And by the way, Anna's brother had a house full of very expensive Chinese antiques, old, beautiful. I loved it. Anything in his house, I would have said, can I have that one? So I have a big, one-of-a-kind carved 24-arm Kuan Yin with weapons. And first of all, I had to look that up. I didn't know Kuan Yin was seen as a warrior goddess sometimes. Usually it's the peaceful. It's like your goddess, your queen up there is very Kuan Yin-like, right? So I took it. I had to take all the arms out, number them all so I could figure out where to put them back together. Took it, had to redo, touch things up, make the weapons with black onyx, all these stones I made the thing, and then he said, oh, my uncle bought this in China 75 years ago, and you're the right person to take it. We want you to take it.
Wow.
And he started at $1,400 US, and then he goes, because I just stood there staring at it, and it wasn't in great shape. I fix deities. I do that for people. And he goes, just give me 1,000, 700. 500. Come on, Paul, take it for 400. I go, stop! This thing's worth 40,000. This is a one-of-a-kind piece bought by your uncle. $400 is like, you're giving it to me. Here's your 400.
You're bargaining?
No, he doesn't want me to leave until I take it.
He's begging you to take it.
Yeah. I didn't say one word.
So you just kept lowering the price.
No, it's a one-of-a-kind, handmade, ancient, brought over by the uncle to, where I live in Irvine, there's 50,000 Chinese people. They're everywhere, right? Just like there's Americans everywhere, there's Indians everywhere. Walk around the streets here, there's Indians. That's the world now. We're all around. And so that's one Chinese piece. When you walk in my front door, she's right there protecting. I fixed her up so beautiful. I mean, you can't price her for me. I can't. Back to my teacher saying sacred things can't be priced.
I love the freedom you have. I still got like religious boundary in me. Like, I'm a Christian, I should not do this, I should do that. And
yeah, but who made that up? 2,000 years ago somebody said that? When you think about that, when you think people practice their religion from 2,000 years ago, and Jesus wasn't even a Christian. He was a Jew.
He's not.
But the thing is with the Jewish people, me being one, although I don't practice it, they don't claim Jesus.
Yeah, they do.
They don't claim him. No, he's not their prophet.
No,
they got to go back to Moses and back to the Old Testament where they are. And I have very many very Jewish friends, and the Jewish religion is amazing. It's it's ancient, but it has its parts where I just shake my head and go, oh my God, you're still thinking like that. What about being in the present? Where's the Jewish religion of today, of the now? Can you ever get over those old books? I believe that we all have just as much access to the divine today as we did then. Hey, you go put me underwater on 40 days on a mountaintop, and every bush is going to look like a tomato or a mango or a burning bush. Anybody would experience that. And then you come down out of the sky, you come down there with all these big stone tablets carved out that Moses said, I didn't carve them. God carved them and gave them to me. You just go, oh, come on, you just think about that. God's brought a lot of people on this earth, but only one is his son. I mean, go study St. Francis of Assisi. And I was just out at his church, and when you go out to his church, all over Italy, it's gold, 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 it's just gold. You go into St. Francis's church, it's brown. Not one trace of gold. It's earth, it's simple, his barefoot, this is just going to be, next year is his 800, this year is his 800 anniversary of his, when he died, or lived. I don't know which of the, I think you do it when he died. So 800 years. The guy that I talked to, one of the monks, he said, people are going to come from all over the world to St. Francis of Assisi. Why? Because when I was in that church and I study him and feel things, I watched a bunch of stuff on him from Italy with dubbing. He's like a Christ. He's amazing. Do they come? How many Christian Catholic saints do they have? Lots of them. I don't know, 100? Some women. Who goes to those people? A few people. How many people go to St. Francis? They're thinking 1 million people will go there this year just because it's his birthday. That tells me what he was teaching is probably more Christian than the Christian thing, right? Think about that, St. Francis.
You have said a lot of precious things today, but if there is only one thing I can take, which is not, that is the freedom from religion, then entering into the freedom of spirituality.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was in jail.
You'll never be free here.
Yeah.
If you can, here's a good thing, because we're closing here. When you study the deep spiritual practices, they don't need a partner. They don't need a partner. A man doesn't need a woman. A man doesn't need a man. A woman doesn't need a woman. Because Brujo always just say, even if it's two women, one's masculine and one's feminine. You can't put two whites together in the yin and yang. It doesn't work. It has to be. One has to be. So you don't need it anymore, because this is your man and this is your wife. And when you marry these two together, you have a relationship with, like Jesus or Buddha, that I've always been at the level of a person, right? I adore women, right? Like most men, right? And if you're at a higher level, when you don't need another person, you just need this wife. And they say that divine state of consciousness is way, way beyond what you and I experience. What you experience, what I experience is awesome. It's beautiful. Love is amazing. As an artist, my house is full of love. It's love everywhere. But that process of marrying your mind and your heart as a marriage, and then holding that through life, that's what happened to St. Francis. He discovered that. He didn't need another person. And so summing up a whole time together is, people are looking for a spiritual practice or a spiritual path, right? For me, I was set up for it, but when I found the mandala in front of those two famous, think of the odds. Put me next to Barbara Streisand for 10 days and I paint a mandala. You can't, it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
It can't. If you do it in a proportion, it'd be 1 in 0.0000001. It couldn't happen, but yet it did happen. And so that when you're practicing some form of spiritual art, and this is the mandala path, it's an ancient path. Millions and millions of artists have gone down this path. And once you have the spiritual component, that you have access to it, then you will see the divine as real, not as imaginary. And the last thing you want to do is read about it in a book from 100 years or 1,000 years ago. That is not God. That is religion. And it's dogmatic, meaning it's depending on the past. Remember what I told you earlier, what Thoreau said. Stop, look, and listen. The ground we're standing on could be paradise. But if you don't have the eyes to see it, you won't see it. You'll miss it. And let's see, who said this? Oh, Einstein. The great Einstein said, if you're not actively imagining, then you're walking around asleep. You're living your life sleeping.
This is so good. This is so good.
You're sleeping. I am not sleeping. Oh yeah. Oh, here's a great finishing quote. All the Buddha people, all the monks and disciples. I give you 2 stories. The one story was, Buddha's coming. And there's all these hundreds of monks sitting around. This is, a long time ago. And they're waiting because he's going to say what it is. They've all practiced this. They've said they're waiting for this giant moment. And Buddha gets up, sitting on the stage, there's hundreds of monks around meditating. And he goes like this.
A flower?
He lifts up a lotus. And he just holds it just like that.
Mm.
He doesn't move. One of the monks right next to him, can't remember his name, but famous story, starts laughing and laughing and laughing. And he falls over backwards. And at that moment, he became enlightened.
He's enlightened.
He became enlightened. He
Yeah.
became one of Jesus. I mean, not Jesus. I got Buddha and Jesus,
Buddha.
same
Buddha.
thing, right? Yeah, most famous disciples. And everybody else said, when's the teaching starting? We want to hear the teaching. Where's the teaching? Anybody get a teaching around here?
It's done. Sorry.
That's right. The teaching is already over.
It's done.
And let's see, what was the other one? The other one that Buddha said, well, the Buddha, it's always called the middle path, right? You know that. It's the middle path. This is the middle path.
Yeah.
What I'm teaching is the middle path. Buddha realized that when there was a teacher teaching somebody how to string a violin, where if you string it too tight, the sound's no good. If you
Yeah.
string it too loose,
Too
it doesn't
loose,
work.
it's not right.
So when students come to my class, I say, hey, I know you want to bring in a lot of stuff you want to do. Put that down for a while. Just do what I'm going to share with you. Once you have these tools, then go off and do your own thing. Don't do my thing, do your own thing. But when you come in the class, just be here. Don't do what you know, do what you don't know. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Don't do what you know. Do what
you don't know.
This is
And this form of
amazing.
art I call spelunking. It's a funny word. And when a guy goes down into a cave and puts the light on, he's called a spelunker. Isn't that a funny English word? I don't know where it comes from. Spelunking. So what I call my form of art is it's very similar to spelunking because you put on a light and you go down in the cave of yourself and you find out what's there. Could be treasures in there. For sure it's your ancestors. It's your book of your life. This is what you were born to live. This is who you are. Deepak Chopra, at the beginning of his seminars, he always said, start to meditate, you're going to be with him for 5 or 6 days. It's the holy Deepak, famous 90 books up there on the stage. Who are you? So people sit there and they're silent. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you are? And who am I? Who am I? And I would say to myself, I don't need to do this. I know who I am. I know what I was born to do. But it doesn't come without your practice and your spiritual work. And as you've heard from me, it can be otherworldly, magic. I mean, my father and mother, they always didn't get along, but they never ever once showed it to my kids. After my father died, my mother said, oh yeah, we argued a lot, but we never once showed you. And I thought, what a great way to parent,
Yeah.
And what a great way to parent. Oh yeah, he said, one of the things my father said, he said, Paul, one day the spiritual doors will open for you and you have to be prepared to step through, because if you don't, the door closes, it may never open for you again, and it may open for somebody else. So when he told me that, I was like 16, 17, he's probably meditating, I get up in the morning, he's going, oh,
What am I doing?
Paul, yeah. I'd get up to go surfing at dark and he'd be meditating and go, good morning, Paul. He'd sit there and I thought he was very, very weird. In those days, can you imagine just the word meditation? You couldn't even mention that around Christian people sometimes. I burn incense, I don't do it in workshops because a lot of people are allergic to it. But I'll remember when I was burning incense and somebody came to my workshop, smelled the incense, turned around and ran away.
Oh.
And then I heard that she was a Christian and she could never go into a room where there was an incense.
Yes.
And I thought, God, whoever made that, what does that have to do with your life? And think of the moment she passed up because the thought of what it was said. So, okay.
You broke my record. You broke our record.
Namaste. If any of you made it this far, I commend you. You actually sat still for a couple hours.
You gonna say something?
Oh,
You
yeah.
come and say something.
好，大家好，我係 Santa。係我而家攞住呢個 Paul 老師嘅單張，係咪幾 handsome 啊？有啲同學話佢好似 Jesus， 我覺得都有啲似嘅。咁 Paul 老師係我應該係2000年開始同佢學畫畫嘅。我好中意蘇曼達拿，帶俾我好多嘅 information， 好多自我嘅反省，不斷嘅自我療愈、自我提升。我唔知點講，所以希望大家有機會可以體驗一下。因為 Paul 老師上一次到香港，差唔多係7-8年前或者10年前，我唔記得啦。因為佢都幾忙㗎嚇。咁啊，呢個資料我會交俾Esther Li 啊，佢係我哋嘅好朋友。每一次到香港，老師到香港，我都會請 Esther Li 做訪問。佢今日已經破咗佢嘅紀錄，講過3個鐘頭，好勁嘅，係啦。我喺度聽到真係聽到好開心㗎，講咗好多好 amazing 嘅古仔啦嚇。咁啊，簡單介紹一下呢個蘇曼達拿係啲咩咧？我哋叫做靈魂曼陀羅。其實所有嘅存在都係 come from 呢個中心點，好似我哋嘅中心點就係我哋嘅心嚇。當我哋用我哋嘅心喺度畫畫嘅時候，其實我哋唔係用頭腦會操控我哋自己，我哋跟隨我哋嘅心，想點就點㗎。所以呢，呢個係一個真係同自己相處、了解自己好 powerful 嘅工具。咁啊，Paul有幾句嘅名言啦，我都要 send 俾 Esther Li。其中一句最簡單嘅就係話 ，Art as a spiritual path， 就係藝術係到我哋嘅靈魂嘅最快嘅呢條捷徑，係嘛？呢個 OK， 第一句咧，第二句就係話，好似係從頭腦到我哋嘅心，好似呢個係呢個距離，但呢個距離最快嘅呢個 the cut way 最快嘅呢條路就係透過蘇曼達拿嚇。那我覺得呢個都係好 amazing 嘅體驗。那我之後我哋而家會做咗一個 YouTube， 有一個 YouTube 就係過去Paul到香港差唔多20幾年嘅時間。有香港而家到 so far 差唔多有6-7位嘅學生，6-7位嘅學生都已經成為Paul第一代嘅訓練嘅導師。那我哋會有個 YouTube， 我會 share 俾Esther Li 嚇，佢係非常幫忙嘅。都係呢個每一位老師，佢都係用佢嘅精神、佢嘅生命為體驗蘇曼陀羅、蘇曼達拿 ，and then 佢哋嘅生命全部都係好大嘅轉變。所以喺呢個 YouTube 裏邊咧，我哋會將每一位老師佢嘅作品做咗嘅 YouTube， 呢個係我哋好中意。那我哋下星期因為好 happen 就係話下星期1到星期5呢次我哋 design 啲課程咧，因為以前咧我哋差唔多係一個星期7天都係畫緊畫嘅，但係而家咧我哋想試一下新嘅方式，因為好多新朋友嘛，所以可能有啲你可以參加1天、參加2天、參加3天都係 very casual，come with your heart， 帶住我哋嘅心去感受而家我同自己嘅關係點，我想點改變我嘅生命，或者更加了解自己，或者更加多嘅療愈。那麼就可以welcome 同 Esther Li 聯絡。
我梗係同你聯絡。
同我哋聯絡。
冇揾我啊嚇！冇問我，我哋會有所有嘅資訊會擺喺 YouTube 嘅呢個資訊欄嘅 ，OK？
係。那麼呢個就係我想同大家講。
好啦，我哋係時候講拜拜啦。
好，大家拜拜，下次見。